Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an expert in networking and personal branding, an author from France, Lirone Glikman. Lirone, welcome to the show.
Hello, Ashutosh. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Thank you. Lirone is a global expert and speaker on business relationships and personal branding. She's the founder of The Human Factor, and she's an author of a book titled The Super Connectors Playbook. And we'll speak about her book as well. So, Lirone, my first question to you: what was the inspiration to embark on your journey into global networking and business development?
Thank you for the question. We're diving right in.
Yeah.
So, you said what the inspiration to dive into the global. I think, first of all, it's really about the global in it. I grew up in a house where my father was a commercial pilot, and I always was, on one hand, fascinated about the world.
Mhm.
On the other hand, I was fascinated about the people, why people in France are different than those in the UK or Europe or Berlin or,
Yeah.
um, sorry. And with that in mind, I realized that in order to achieve anything in life, we need the support of others. Some of the most specific or significant people in our lives that we all
Mhm.
remember would be the first person who believed in us, the
Yeah.
person who opened the door for us. We all get results, even finding our partner.
Correct.
And with this realization, I understood that it's not taught enough. It's told that some people have it or some people not. And without understanding that we have to do it if you want to live a fulfilled life.
Mhm.
And we're not being taught. This is what led me to teaching, researching, and then developing a methodology on business relationships. And business
Mhm.
development is a similar world of relationship, just more with strategy and
Fascinating.
planning.
Fascinating, fascinating. And you worked across over 26 countries. How has this international exposure influenced your work and your worldview?
So it started with aiming to become international from the same reason, I maybe wanted to go through my father's footprints, but in my own way.
Mhm.
And as you know, as a person who also travels and interviewing so many people from all over the world, you can learn so much. I've
Correct.
lived in Sydney, Australia for several years. I lived in New York. I lived or spent so much time in Berlin and Madrid and Tel Aviv and in different cities. And you learn so much from different people.
Mhm.
And then when I come to my different workshops and even the book, when I teach about business relationship, personal branding, we live in a global environment today. Then I learn, tips and different skills from everyone. For example, from the Australians, they are they're easygoing, but
Mhm.
they have this kind of reservedness.
Mhm.
And one story was that when I arrived there and my English wasn't as good, and I met this radio manager. I was a radio presenter before I moved to Sydney,
Mhm.
but I met this Bondi FM radio manager. And when he interviewed me, on the one he saw I had a lot of experience, but he
Mhm.
also saw my passion for it. And he told me a sentence I would never forget, and I think it's cross cultures. He says, your English sucks, but I
Mhm.
like your vibes, and I'm going to give you a show. And I
Wow.
did have a show with broken English. Now think about how strong is that? No matter where you are in the world, your
Mhm.
vibe, your energy, your passion can
Mhm.
really transcend maybe even skills sometimes
Mhm.
and
What a power,
borders and
what a
mental
powerful
borders.
comment. What a powerful comment for so many of my viewers and listeners. Thank you for sharing this. Let's talk about the human factor now, Liron. Tell me about the human factor. What does it stand for? And how is it different from conventional networking consultancies?
Definitely. So the name of the consultancy is The Human Factor by Lirone Glikman, because it's really kind of through my experience on the one
Mm,
hand, but on
mm,
the other hand, I did not invent business relationship or personal branding.
mm,
There are many, consultants and speakers and authors and professionals out there. And what I love that we all talk on the one hand on authenticity, on
mm,
the other hand about giving. These are the foundations for it. But I would say that our specific angle or unique angle would be, on the one hand, it's very professional results driven. So I help professionals, startup founders, managers at Fortune 500 companies, even governments,
Mm-hmm.
to build their network and build their brand in an authentic and strategic way in
Mm-hmm.
order to achieve results. This is the one thing. The
Mm-hmm.
second thing I see, it's modern, so it has AI and it understands the business world today. And it also, the key is that it has a six-pillar method, which I'll share in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And this method is basically gives people, first of all, order. Okay, so this is how I can do it to get results. Secondly, it gives people confident, okay, if I do this, I'll get that, because nobody teaches us how to do it. So many people are insecure around business relationships. And it basically gives them wings as well. When you have a method, when you have a confidence, you can basically get wherever, or try at least to get
Correct.
wherever you want.
Yeah.
And if you want me to share the model as well, so it has
Yeah,
six
please
pillars.
do. Yeah.
It starts with a goal.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a small or a big goal. We need to know where we headed.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's about what I like to call the people strategy. Like in business, we have business plan and marketing plan.
Yeah.
Why won't we have people plan?
Correct.
Who are the people that can help us achieve those goals?
Mm.
Then it's about business, about our personal brand. So when you approach someone, either new or even someone
Mm.
your brand will play a role here, whether they will open a door for you or whether they
Mm.
will introduce you or help you. And then it's really about how to build our brand in a authentic yet again strategic way or relevant way for your
Mm.
space or for your finding a job or
Correct.
to getting a client or getting investor. So the
Mm.
messages can be a bit different, and this is also a whole world which I share. So we have goal, we have people plan, we have personal branding, and then we have the communication. How do you build rapport and break the ice and create a small talk when you
Yeah.
first meet someone that
Mm.
holds for the long run?
Mm.
Then it's about how to maintain relationship, which is the working in the word networking, and so many people get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's about results. Now, usually, if you build the right relationship, if you have the right brand, if you approach people in the right way, if you build the right rapport and maintain the relationship in a good way,
Mm.
results can come easy. But sometimes it's not so easy.
Yeah.
So there are also different ways to do it harmonically, I would say.
Mm. What a great response. Thank you. I
Thank
mean, I
you.
love these six pillars of the human factor. Thank you. Uh, Liron, what are some of the common misconceptions people have about networking?
Hmm. May I ask you this question before I answer it? I wonder, what do you think about it?
Well, my own thought has always been that people assume that if you give out more visiting cards or if you have more followers, your network better, which is not the case.
Hmm. You say quantity over quality.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a pile of business cards, and I have a lot of those. It's great, it's amazing, but it's just a card unless you humanize it, unless you get in touch with the people. So I definitely agree with you around that. I think some of the main misconception is people think it's fake,
Hmm.
and people may say, it's not for me. It's marketing, and I don't like to market myself.
Hmm.
But actually, these are all above surface, I would say, misconceptions. Usually, and through researchers, the main reason why people don't like to so-called network is because of the fear. One
Hmm.
of the biggest fears is actually fear of rejection and even fear of they say, the fear of standing on stage, but when you're talking to one, three, four people, even on Zoom, you are on a stage.
Correct.
And research shows that 90% of the population
Hmm.
has some kind of social anxiety. It could be, again, one-on-one. It could be if you're speaking to an authoritative person, if you're at meeting or so. So 90% of the population has some kind of fear. And
Hmm.
how does it actually come to life? When I talk to someone or I approach someone, then those thoughts that sneak in, like, oh, maybe I just said something stupid, or maybe they don't like me, or it will never work out for me. Why would they say yes to me? So we have all this inner chatter, which is basically the fear of not being accepted.
Hmm.
And what I also share also in the book in chapter 2, I have a whole
Yeah.
chapter on exactly this. First of all, understand that the
Hmm.
baseline is that we all share this fear, and let's normalize it because it's okay. But
Hmm.
the other side of it, that not only that we all want and need to connect, humanity thrives through
Correct.
collaboration, right? I
Correct.
always laugh and say that even you and I came to this world because mom and dad wanted to collaborate, so everything
Well said.
happens because
Yeah.
of collaboration.
Very well
And
said.
with that in mind, I also discuss about our body, our biology is also wired to help us connect.
Mm,
When you speak to someone new after a few seconds, if the conversation is nice and positive, both of you will will have a burst of oxytocin. And oxytocin is a hormone that makes you feel much more calmer, friendly, even loving, fuzzy feeling. So our body is actually wired to help us
well
do it. You
said.
should
Well said.
just
Well
do
said.
it,
You just showed me a copy of your book. Show me the book again and tell
please.
us what is the core message of the book.
hmm So the core message, similar to what I actually said earlier, is through my life experience,
Hmm.
and again, researching and teaching in over 26 countries, so many different people, I realized that in order to live a fulfilled life, we need to learn how to build relationships,
Mm,
meaningful relationships. So the book actually is for the dreamers and for the doers and for the people who want to have, meaning time on this earth. It
mm,
really teaches them the ability to connect better in order to fulfill yourself
mm.
in this lifetime.
Wow. And Liron, what is the meaning of authentic connection?
Hmm.
I was preparing for this conversation. I remember reading these two words. What does authentic connection mean to you in the business context? And why do you believe so many professionals struggle with building meaningful relationships?
Wow, this is a big question, and I'll try to answer it in the best way I can.
Mhm.
I think authenticity, it's an important word we all have to use, but it's also a bit fluid, because it's a really big thing, and being
Mm,
authentic in personal setting might not be the same in professional settings. But if I'll try to kind of ground it, I like to say that basically it's about approving what I think, what I say, and what I do. And
right.
when I come to any meeting or any situation, when I'm approving of myself, kind of more congruent or aligned with my center, there are many different words to say it.
Mm,
And when I know that I have a choice, I choose what to say, I choose how to bring myself to this any
mm,
situation, then
mm,
I can be more authentic.
mm,
And many times, and I see it also a lot with when I work with women, but not only, about trying to please. And I just had this conversation yesterday with a friend of mine. Is pleasing is inauthentic or is it authentic? I mean,
mm,
sometimes we behave a certain way because we don't want people to, again, deny us, maybe don't get us the job we want or the client that we want. So it's really about knowing where is your boundaries, where is being nice is not pleasing is because you want to
yeah.
assist this person, because you want to share this knowledge that may help them,
Mm,
but
mm,
where are your personal boundaries? And this is personal for each and every one of us. And I think it's important, to know it now. If I'll be honest, it took me years to get to this place.
sure.
I
I'm
think it's
sure.
about emotional maturity. It's about experience. So it takes time to be able to stand with your core authentically.
Very interesting.
On the other hand, when you do understand, when you do know how to name your feeling and the situation and how you bring yourself, it really brings more confidence. And then when you add the system or some kind of action plan, like for example, the one I share, it
Mhm.
really helps you to bring yourself, but to know what you're going to say, to know how you should act in order to, on the one hand, feel comfortable with yourself and how you brought yourself that day, but
Mhm.
also aim for a goal that the other side would enjoy from. And I talk a lot about how we feel, but also one of the most important things I see about also being authentic is how the
Mm,
other side perceives us. You probably know this famous sentence by Maya Angelou that says, "People will not remember what you said or what you did, but
mm.
how you made them feel."
Correct.
So this experience feeling, like the experience component, how do they experience us, is
Mm,
also very important, because if you can't really fake authenticity, and
mm.
when you bring yourself in the right way, when I can see in your eyes
Yeah.
that you're really enjoying this conversation, that we
Mm,
both really connect, there is
mm.
some magical energy,
Absolutely.
and you
Very well
can't
said.
fake it. And this
Well,
is where rapport happen, and this is where we can take the relationship to the next stage.
absolutely. Liron, you also do a lot of work on personal branding. So the next few questions are on personal branding for you. How do you define a personal brand in today's digital age?
Hmm. Well, you probably know that they say that about 70%, some research says more or less, of, let's say, the posts online are AI generated, and
Hmm.
I don't think it will go away. I
Hmm.
think we should, first of all, today we should understand that we need to find a way to bring our own um, spark or our own identity or our own
Correct.
brand, which can be, it could be through some specific word or an attitude or even visual and colors. And the AI basically corrupt that. It takes us to become this kind of same, copycat
Hmm.
uh, people, and I think that's something that we should fight. I mean, I use generative AI, different tools to
Hmm.
write my posts, but then I write the last version. I make sure that my words are out there.
Hmm.
So I think in today, the biggest danger is to lose who we are. But then there is also a big opportunity. If you
Correct.
know how to overcome it, then
Hmm.
maybe you will be able to stand out. For example, I just used a ChatGPT tool to write a business post,
Hmm.
but a post that rhymes. Now, I'm not so good at, making things like sounds this
Yeah.
way,
Hmm.
and I wonder how it will be accepted. So I also experiment. Maybe I can use the AI to create very different type of text. But it's really about experimenting and finding how you pour yourself in it and not lose yourself to
Right.
the AI.
Right. Very well said. And based on all the work that you do with so many people, what, in your view, are some of the common mistakes people make when it comes to presenting their personal or professional brand?
One of the common mistake is basically not adjusting your pitch or your messages to the
Mm.
people, to your actual audience. I'll
Right.
take an easy example would be if you're going to a certain event, a networking event or a meetup. We meet different people. We can meet
Mm.
people who are maybe sharing or giving the same services as us
Mm.
if you have your own business. We
Mm.
can meet clients, we can meet investors, we can meet prospect, also again clients or so on, and each of them should receive a bit of a different angle of our pitch.
Mhm.
Like if I'm a startup and I meet an investor, then I want to share why some of my company's achievements, for
Mm.
example. If I meet a service provider, then I want to share, what is our uniqueness when in our services. So just have your own pitch, but the main mistake is that they don't necessarily adjust it, have like this another ending, small
Right.
adjustment to really talk to
Mm.
resonate with the person you're speaking with, because eventually most people, looking for what's in it for me.
Correct.
And again, it may sound really fake, but on the other hand, it's a great tool to connect with people. If I know what you're interested in, and if I'm able to communicate what you are interested in the right way, maybe we will connect. Maybe we will do great things together. Maybe I will help you fulfill yourself, and maybe you will help me fulfill myself as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so knowing or being sensitive to how to present ourselves in the way that resonates with the other person
Mm.
is a big mistake, and it can make a big change if more would do it in the right way.
Mm. Amazing lessons on personal branding. Thank you. Liron, what does influence with integrity mean? And
Hmm.
give me an example.
So influence with integrity, basically, we're all influencing our environment, right? We all, when I remember, they always say that when someone hits world record, let's say in the Olympics,
Mm.
after many years that this record wasn't broken,
Mm.
then suddenly you see that so many people after that break it like one after the other in a very fast pace than before,
Mm. Mm.
because this is also this influence. So when I see it also in my business, when I started working and speaking frequently in different countries, I saw my colleagues who were also speakers on different topics
Mm.
also suddenly starting to speak in different countries because they saw that this is possible for them.
Yeah.
So on the one hand is really understanding that we are influencing other people, and we might as well walk the world and communicate our values,
Mm.
being, with integrity, and making sure that how do we want to influence other people? Do we want to influence them in the right way or in the other way? Another thing about it is also about how we are able to lift each other up. Like When I connect with people, when I, even when I again do what I do, I always try to think, how do I give value to people? How what I do help other lift them or advance them to the next stage. So when we're talking about influence with integrity, is first of all understanding that we're all influencing different people, being truthful to our own values and communicating them, and also thinking how can we add value, being conscious about the fact that we're adding values to others, and we want to make sure that they get the good stuff from us.
Very well said. Uh, I've got time for a few more questions, and I want to now ask you a few questions about you personally. Liron, you've built a career that merges purpose, impact, and innovation.
Mhm.
What keeps you grounded?
Hmm. What keeps me grounded? I think, first of all, it's coming from grounded or modest environment.
Mm,
I mean, middle class, happy people. I think it's really about the basic.
mm,
So and also maybe the experience, because I learned that I'm doing amazing stuff. Next week I have two book launch events in Berlin,
mm,
and I'm going to meet all my friends in the last few years that will also come there, and I'm so
mm,
excited, and I'm like, oh my
mm.
God, I live the dream. But then the next day I can come and clean my house. I mean, so
Yeah.
it's just knowing that life is like ups and down, and it's not that not be too full of yourself, but then again, still value the journey. So for me, I value the journey. I I know that what I'm doing today was a dream of mine a few years ago.
Mm,
So with this realization, and I would say modesty, I do what I love doing, but I remember that this was my dream
yeah.
once. And as I said earlier, this could maybe I am now living a dream of other people as well. So
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
grounded and inspired by the fact that I can inspire people.
Great response. I have time for two more questions for you. Liron, you're also an advisor to a UN committee on the Sustainable Development Goals. How do you see business and sustainability intersecting?
Mhm. So let me even share a small story. It's actually in the book how I become an advisor, and it's an NGO. It's an external UN committee to Sustainable Development Goals,
Mm,
and it's also was a dream of mine. I wanted to be in the UN. I wanted to influence the world, and also in the book I talk how a goal meets opportunity and how we should materialize on it.
mm, mm,
So a decade ago or so, I was in New York at a friend's birthday, and he introduced me to this guy, Isaac. And Isaac told me he's one of the managers in this NGO. And then I understand, okay, this is the opportunity I was waiting for.
mm,
So I shared my experience and how I can support them, and how important for me to help the world in, more sustainable or, donation or anything else that is not only business. And after a few weeks of interviews and so on and checkups,
mm.
I was accepted. And since then, I've been an advisor there. So this is also a story of how to materialize on
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah.
But also when it comes to business and sustainability, I think we should all have two bottom lines, or at least one bottom line, but also always
Mm,
give
correct.
a donation. Think about how, so this is one thing, how we can also give to others financially, or even through our content or services as
Mm,
part of what we do. Secondly, is try to also be, green businesses. Try to understand that everything we use, can do good or bad to the world.
mm,
So I think this is our responsibility as business owners and as people on this planet. And when you have a business, you have a power. You have a power
mm.
again to use less paper, for example,
Yeah.
or to support those who are just starting out. So I always try to connect between the two and see what are the small things I can do, either
Mm.
again through content or through
Yeah.
donation or any other activity.
Well said. And my last question for you, Liron. If you could leave our listeners with one powerful idea about the role of relationships in life and work, what
Mhm.
would it be?
One powerful idea is, if you give others, you will live a fulfilled life, but you shouldn't give others in order to give others. You should
Mm,
really, if we live through the lens of how can I give, how can I be of service to others, because we really want to, because it makes us feel good, but it also makes the
mm.
other side feel good, then karma, life
Yeah.
works in a certain way. There is a Zig Ziglar's quote that says that if you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want.
Correct.
But my addition is, don't do it because you want to get what you want. Do it because you also want to give others.
Absolutely. And on that note, Lirone, I just want to say what a fascinating and content-filled conversation this has been. Thank you for talking to me about your journey and how you have really excelled in so many different countries, in so many different areas. Thank you for talking to me about the human factor and the 6 pillars of the human factor. Thank you for speaking to me about your book, The Super Connectors Playbook. And I'll ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out Lirone Glikman's book, The Super Connectors Playbook. Thank you also for talking to me about personal branding and a few very deep thoughts about yourself. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much. It's been a great honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.